Welcome to the Contagious Code Podcast, where we dive deep into code, learn practical skills, celebrate the beauty of engineering, and eliminate imposter syndrome. I am Tejas Kumar, and I've been building on the web for over 20 years at places like Vercel, Spotify, Zeta, and more. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Eddy Vinck. Eddy Vinck is a software engineer with a lot of talent and an entrepreneur. He, like many of us listeners of the podcast, has ideas and executes on them. Today, Eddy is here to talk to us about his new AI project called Blog Recorder. It's a tool that he built to solve his own problem, where he often has great ideas for blog posts, but he's in a situation where he can't write them down immediately. He can't write the posts. So he's either in the shower or driving in his car, and he's like, I would write this, but I'm driving and I can't pull out my laptop and type in the middle of traffic. And so he built an application that runs on his phone. He opens it up. He records his ideas for a blog post. He may even dictate the entire blog post. And with generative AI, turns it into an actual blog post. He's emphatic that this is not a transcription like a text-to-speech or speech-to-text application. It's more a thought-to-text application. You think and it becomes not just a direct transcript of what you're saying, but it actually becomes a cohesive blog post. This was a very well-received app with people even like Kent C. Dodds from the community just adopting it and saying, hey, this is so great. I've wanted this for such a long time. And so today on the podcast, he's here to talk to us about how it's built using AI. His entire pipeline to go from speech to understand thoughts to then write it as a cohesive blog post, end to end. In our discussion today, we cover all of that, all of the AI topics to just build an application. We also take this look at AI engineering through the lens of Eddy, right? Because there seems to be confusion about what AI engineering is. Some people think it involves machine learning and training models and research, and while it can, it's not limited to that. AI engineering, according to Swix, a friend of mine with his own podcast, Late in Space, subscribe if you haven't, says, it's not necessarily building AI models, it's building with AI models. It's not creating the models, it's applying the models to solve problems, ultimately engineering being problem solving. And so in our discussion today with Eddy, we cover all of those points. If you're interested in AI engineering, if you're interested in how can I take my thoughts and make them a blog post quickly, and how does that application even work, then this episode is for you. I'd like to offer this to all of you at no cost. It is separate to my day job, and the way we can do that is through partners and sponsors. Let's take a moment to acknowledge them, and then we'll get straight into the episode. The Contagious Code Podcast is partnered with Code Crafters. Code Crafters is a great way to level up your coding skills, because what they do is they have you pick a programming language like JavaScript or Python, and they have you pick a tool like Git or Redis or Docker, and they have you build that tool with the language you choose, and they hold your hand along the way. And by doing that, you get better at both the language and the tool. It's really, really great. They have a generous free tier, but if you want to start paying and get a huge discount, use the link in the show notes. That's tej.as/codecrafters. Thank you for sticking around. Here's my discussion with Eddy Vinck. Eddy Vinck, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I'm really excited to talk to you today. As a fellow tourist in Austin, Texas, which was never really a weird city, I'm so excited to catch up, see how you've been, but also to give people practical, useful takeaways on building amazing products. And I'd love to start there. I'd love that to be the frame of our discussion. You recently, I don't know if it was recent anymore, but you shipped a product, Eddy, which is already like way more than most engineers do. You shipped a product called Blog Recorder. Tell us what it is. I saw a thumbnail on the internet which said this. It said Blog Recorder is not big red letters, not a voice transcription app, and this like Wakanda Forever, like crossing hands emoji. So if it's not a voice transcription app, in your own words from someone who made it, what is that? And then let's dive into the technical architecture and how one would build something like that.
Right. So basically, what is Blog Recorder? Blog Recorder is a tool that I built that lets people create blog posts by thinking out loud, like we're doing right now. And so you can think of it as if you're having, natural flowing conversation, but more of like a monologue, although it could also be a conversation. That's more like unstructured, and Blog Recorder will take that and process it into a natural flowing and formatted article, which you can then edit within the app and export to a bunch of formats, basically. And what do I mean by it's not like a voice transcription app? It's basically like You have a bunch of those apps that like can do like voice memos with like transcription, but it's it's not that. It's not like a word for word transcription. It's more, it tries to make sense of what you say, even though it might be very unstructured.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, because transcription is usually one to one. Interestingly enough, this has some overlap with the Bible. Did you know this? So
Okay.
I spent some time doing Bible work a long time ago, and you've heard about the King James, or there's many different translations of the Bible into English, and they're classified into different buckets, and some of them are um, word for word transcription or translations, and this is sort of,
Hmm.
we talked about vocal transcription, but there's also what's called word for thought translations, which are more likely to be misinterpreted. It's just like I'm going to write a word to what the original author was thinking, which how can you know that? Um,
Right.
and probably even worse, there's what they call thought for thought translations, which are like, just the Wild West, right? It's like, oh, this guy was probably thinking this, so I'm just thinking about his thought. I'm going to write this down. Those aren't very well respected, in those circles. But word for word, word for thought, and thought for thought. Where does blog recorder fit into this? Is it word for thought, meaning I say words and then the language model, I'm assuming, will quote unquote think about my words and give me a blog post, or is it more thought for thought, meaning I just like there's no filter from brain to mouth for me. I just like literally voice my thoughts out loud and then let an LLM also, quote unquote think. Like how I guess creative is the process?
It tries to just so when you say creative, I'm assuming you're talking about maybe hallucinations, which is kind of what you were referring to with not word for word, but assuming what someone else thinks, right?
It could be,
Could
but
be compared.
in this
Yeah.
case, hallucinations are probably a feature, right? Because when you're taking abstract thoughts and turning them into a cohesive blog post, you probably want some creativity. You want some hallucination. So yes, we could call it hallucination, but I want to avoid the term hallucination if we can, because hallucination
Hmm.
is usually like it's like a disease, right? Like, oh, he's got schizophrenia, he's hallucinating. Um,
Right.
it's more creativity and this is an interesting philosophical discussion, right?
Right.
What is creativity and what is hallucination? Because they both could be the same. But I mean
Hmm.
creativity in that it's not seeing that which it's not supposed to. It's actually supposed to have ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I think it does. But yeah, to answer your question, so it tries its best to like, of course, like it's not a word for word transcription, so like it's not going to be exactly what you said, but it tries its best to like use the words that you said, and not, and you can even train it on like existing articles that you've written in the past, right? That's a recently released feature, and that even helps it to do that in a much better way. Of course, it's still AI, and like there's going to be like there's a bit of variation in whatever it produces. Of course, it's never going to be like 100% perfect, but like it's super close to like what I would want to use myself, because it's an app that I initially built because I wanted to have it, and I figured, well, let's see if other people would like something like this. And that's when I set up a wait list and all that, and started promoting it. And there was enough interest that I figured, well, I don't have to just build this for myself, I can do it for other people as well. And yeah, people are liking it, even in like the state that it was before, where you couldn't do like the personalized AI training models in the app. Like people already liked it, but now it's just even better. So like I'm not sure how to answer your question exactly,
Uh,
but like it it definitely like takes what you say, and it like puts a lot of emphasis into it, and it like doesn't try to like make up a bunch of facts in the middle, or like add anything that you did not say yourself, right? It's all
right.
like based on your creativity as a person, but then just like amplified with the speed of AI to process it into something that is, like an article.
Right. What's the latency with it? Meaning, like, is it do I speak and pause and then instantly there's something, or do I have to like record a whole, chain of thought over a long period of time and then I get a blog post?
Yeah, it's the second one. So you record for a while, and then just like if you think that you're happy with whatever you recorded, you can then submit it, and it goes into like some processing, and like depending on how long you talk, it takes a bit longer, of course, but generally it's like pretty fast.
Can't wait. So I confession, I haven't yet tried it, but I intend to. Just after
Yeah.
this call. Mainly because like in the next year, my team and I are like ramping up content production, and so the idea, right? That how cool would it be if we could just like record a message and then have it become a blog post? Not a like speech to text thing, but like an actual blog post. That is so cool. Um, let's talk about that specifically. The speech to text pipeline. If I was to guess, if I was to guess what's happening there under the hood, technically,
Hmm.
you've got some type of like language model that's interpreting the speech. So is it Whisper? Is it? And of course, if anything here is like giving away trade secrets and NDA, please feel free not to. You can reject me anytime.
Right.
But I'm just curious engineers listen to this, so I'm interested in specifically the speech to text pipeline.
Yes, of course. It's not like my own like proprietary thing, so we can talk about it, of course. Like the initial setup was using Whisper. I eventually migrated away from Whisper, not necessarily because it was bad or anything, but the OpenAI Whisper API has pretty rough rate limits. Like if you have like I haven't hit that threshold quite yet, but it's not something that I wanted to run into. Like I believe it was maybe they've changed it at this point, but it used to be like 50 requests per minute, which is, if you have quite a few users, then you're gonna hit that pretty easily, and it's gonna
Yeah.
suck. So I moved to a different provider. So right now I'm using DeepGram for transcription, but I'm also open to trying other options if those work better. But DeepGram worked pretty well for me, so I stuck with it.
And Dgram's similar to Whisper, where you send a binary, so an MP3, a blob to it,
Hmm.
and then it returns you text. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you experimented with self-hosted models at all? I'm seeing a lot of promise there.
Not yet. I want to, but as you might know, or people listening probably don't, I work on this not like as my primary job. It's like something that I do outside of my job. And that means that I have to be very strict with what I spend my time on. And, self-hosting an audio model is like, or transcription model, like it might come to that down the line whenever like I don't know, like maybe the costs will explode with DeepGram or a different provider, but that's a problem for another day. Right now I have more like high impact stuff to work on for sure,
That's
like
so great. And I
doing
do want to,
doing marketing and all that.
yeah, and I want to come
Yeah.
back to like how
Yeah.
someone chooses what to work on, because I think that's an interesting topic. What is your, just for the audience, since you mentioned this isn't your full-time thing, let's give them a full picture. What do you do for work on the daily?
Right. So I work at a software consultancy. That's like my employer. It's like a small company in the Netherlands. We're like about 10 people, like very small. And we all like are engineers just like working as externals at other companies in the Netherlands for the most part. And it's basically a company that like every engineer there is pretty much like specializing in front end and like TypeScript, JavaScript, Node.js, and all that. So mostly like front end leaning people, but also full stack engineers that help out a bunch of other companies in the country.
Cool. And so one day you decided, you know what, I'm just going to, I feel inspired to find a way to get my thoughts into blog posts, and just like that, you created this as a side thing. Um, so cool. All right, let's talk about the architecture. So we already kind of talked about the speech to text. You're using DeepGram, and so
Mm.
DeepGram gives you a transcript. It literally will take text, or rather speech, and give you text. Then I'm assuming you take that text and pass it in a prompt to a language model of some sort,
Right.
GPT-4, whatever you're using there, and then your prompt is something like make a blog post out of this, and then you
Yeah.
inject the okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's essentially how it works. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
for
cool.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you put a UI on top of it, and
Hmm.
now it's a product. I'm curious. So there's a lot of people who are talking about this idea that AI engineering is the thing. AI engineering is going to
Hmm.
replace UI engineering. Having built a cohesive like product,
Hmm.
what percentage of your time would you say you've spent like working on the AI piece versus working on the UI, the little details like the login, the emails, the I'm assuming you have some type of emails like confirmation emails
Hmm.
or logins or
Yeah.
forgot password or yeah. So like in terms of like an entire product, right? Um, what portion of that's AI and what portion is just other stuff?
I mean, a lot of it. So AI, like it's still pretty recent, and I started building it somewhere like 2023 ish. That's when like had the idea and like started looking into it because like I had never done anything with like OpenAI APIs or anything like that before. So that was all pretty new to me. I just had like this idea of my head of like, okay, I want to build this thing. How do I do it? So it's just like, okay, I'm assuming that this is how it works. So I'm just gonna try it and see how it goes and like go from there. Um, but sorry, what was your question again? I'm already rambling.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's why we do long form.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
the the question is, what percentage of your time do you spend on AI specifically versus like regular product stuff, emails and UI and
Right. The AI stuff, it's not that big of a like if I have to think about like strictly like how much time am I invest like crafting the right prompts like that can be like a bit of a trial and error like just it's just me feeding it the same input with like a different like say you have the transcript right and like I just keep tweaking the prompt until like I get the results that I want, so that can be a bit time consuming, but a lot of it is also just working on the product. Like the tool has its own rich text editor, which is also you can spend a lot of hours working on one of those. So and it's going to be an ongoing process because want to make that one much more awesome. But yeah, there's a lot of things to work on. So AI, if I had to give it like a number, like maybe 10-20%, like
wow.
but it's not like it's mostly just because I'm not like like training or like hosting my own models yet, right? Maybe
Yeah.
that's something that I want to do in the future, but I'm just using APIs, so like
Yeah.
it's all like just fine tuning the prompt and making sure that the results are what I want, and then you know creating the whole loop, processing it into the formats that I want, so that it like you know
Yeah.
is a format that is accepted by the rich text editor, and like that I can edit that and then save it and all that. So yeah, AI is it's very important, but it's not like the biggest thing that I spend my time on as far as like the engineering goes. A lot of because this is also like my first ever SaaS product or like any like really product with like that's like full stack like period that I put out there that I let other people use. So there was a lot of things that I had needed to learn to do that because well I'm kind of stubborn, like I wasn't, so I'm kind of like maybe a bit paranoid, but I like to make it a bit more future proof. Like I figured, well, I
Mm.
have this project, I want to make it in such a way that for like future projects I can use that as like a base to
Yeah.
like create more projects out of. So I wasn't, maybe this is controversial, I don't know, but like there's a lot of people that build products that just like it's like a spaghetti of other SaaS products connected via API calls and all that.
Yeah.
And mine is a bit more lean. Just AWS, DigitalOcean, regular Postgres database. I have the whole thing written out in infrastructure as code with Terraform and my own
Wow.
GitHub actions and all that for the pipelines. And so it was, and that was something that I hadn't really done to this extent for a personal project before. So like getting all that in the state that I want, and also I've moved through different providers while working on the project because I do use some like SaaS offerings. Like you mentioned like the login emails and all that. Like I didn't
Yeah.
do that part. I used Clerk for my auth, and because by the time that I had my project, the product was ready except for like the off stuff. So I figured, oh, I don't want to like wait much longer. Like I've been working on the project for a while. I figured, well, if it goes anywhere, I can always switch it out to something custom or whatever. But
Yeah.
right now I'm using Clerk, and yeah, I use a few other things like SendGrid for emails, and but most of it is just like Lambda functions on AWS for like some serverless processing. Files are uploaded to S3, uh, and the whole application is a Next.js app on DigitalOcean in the VPS. So yeah,
A Next.js app that is not hosted on Vercel. What was
I
that
know
like?
it's crazy. It's crazy.
I
No, it's
mean, so are you serving the dev server then from DigitalOcean, or are you actually like building your functions into, separate entry points, and how's that working on DigitalOcean?
I mean, it's just so it's not like on the latest Next version because when I started, like they were still kind of experimental with like the whole server component stuff. So I am still on the pages directory, and it's just like it's just a server. So I use their Docker setup. I believe I started with like what was it called, the Create T3 Turbo stack, which is like
Right.
a monorepo setup.
Awesome.
Because like at the time I figured, well, that stack was like monorepo setup, which is kind of nice because I can use that for like having all the stuff in the same place for like lambdas and the Next.js app, and also it had this React Native template ready to go if I ever wanted to maybe do a React Native app for Block Recorder. I could probably do that pretty quickly then. I haven't yet, but maybe, one day it's still
Yeah.
still sitting in my files being untouched, but who knows. But yeah, there was a lot for me to figure out for like this first project or product because well, I wanted to be somewhat future proof, but I also didn't want to like rely on too many third party vendors
Yeah.
to the point where it's just becoming a big risk of like I don't know like not throwing shade to any like products or companies or anything, but there's a lot of like really simple tools that it's just like I could just configure a lambda in a few different ways, and like then I have basically what the same thing. So that's why I for a lot of things.
That's so cool. Now that you mentioned this, you kind of nerd snack me, man, because I want to talk more about this self-hosting stuff.
Uh
So what I understand is you've just got a bunch of containers that you host on DigitalOcean.
right.
And one of the containers is your Next.js app, but there's other containers for this. But then you also mentioned AWS. Is that just for the Postgres database? Is that RDS? Why both clouds? Why both platforms?
Well, initially I wanted to host on just AWS, and I was, but at the time, maybe I heard from a friend that it has improved, but I was trying to host on AWS Amplify at the time, and they
Oh,
had
yeah.
some like latency stuff, like I didn't want to have like a long cold start for the Next.js app whenever like, because it's my first product. I realized like this is not gonna have millions of users, so it's not gonna be warm all day. The serverless stuff. So yeah, I was running into some cold start issues there. Like stuff just felt slower than it needed to be. So I figured, well, I'll just throw it on a VPS, and then it's just gonna be always on and always snappy. And I'm not using RDS. I would looked into that, but I'm using a Postgres database on DigitalOcean as well. Yeah.
So really, AWS has no purpose here. It sounds like it was more I
Uh,
tried it and it was too slow, so I moved to DigitalOcean.
well, I'm still doing some serverless stuff there, like S3
Lambda.
and Lambda, and CloudWatch for like making stuff run as a cron job and all that. But it's pretty minimal. But
Yeah.
I'm using both at the moment. Yeah.
This is so cool. I think there's a big lesson in here for, and I think really the audience are people who are just super interested in the details of this, right? So I appreciate you
Uh huh.
going into this detail. Just to recap some terms you said that people may not be familiar with, cold starts, and correct me if I'm wrong. Cold starts are when you invoke a Lambda function or you call a serverless endpoint, but it needs to, the runtime that it executes, it needs to like start, which is slower. If the function is cold, meaning it wasn't used in a long time, so it went to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And then you said another thing. What was it? You said RDS, which is the database service on AWS, but you used another term. I forgot. Man, I just had it. I was gonna like
Postgres.
no, I think wait, no, it was anyway. It'll come back. And maybe
Okay.
people let
Okay.
us know in the comments if anything was unclear, and we'll. Okay, so DigitalOcean for containers, and the database, and AWS for S3 and Lambda. That is so cool. You said you wanted to do that because people tend to over rely on serverless providers for these things, right? I think
Uh
of
huh.
like the database I'd use like I don't know, Supabase, Zeta, Neon, and
Right.
for the Lambda functions you deploy in Vercel. Is this something you were comfortable with? Did you go into it knowing exactly what you were doing, or is this something where you're like, I want to learn by doing and I want to stretch myself?
I wish I could say that I knew everything before, but no, there was a lot of learning involved. So yeah, just like you said, I really wanted to, like you said, stretch myself and learn new things and see how if I can, actually do it without, tying together 14 different SaaS providers to build an app and maybe keep it a bit more lean and just, use two providers. So
So
yeah.
cool. Is this something you'd recommend to people? There's people listening, Eddie, who want to go out and start products. And now that I'm assuming you've tied together a bunch of SaaS products before. So having experienced both sides, in various capacities, would you recommend this to people? Why?
Yes and no, which is so it depends, as always. But so the thing is, if I really wanted to launch a lot faster, I probably shouldn't have taken this approach because it took me quite a while to figure everything out. Like, I have moved from like my SQL database on planet scale during the middle of development because they got rid of their free tier and their product offering is great, I'm sure, but it was a bit the pricing just didn't make sense for my early stage product that I'm building in my spare time. So I figured, well, I'm gonna need a new database. So then I had to migrate from MySQL to a different database, and I figured, well, Postgres is pretty well supported in most hosting places. So I'm gonna move to Postgres. But now I have like this dilemma of like, how do I actually migrate my stuff from MySQL to Postgres? Like I just told you, like I work at like this company that's mostly front end engineers. Like we do some Node, we do some stuff like that. But like I had never done a like database migration from like one model to another, so that was like pretty new to me. Yeah, there's so much stuff that I needed to learn. If I really wanted to cut corners, I could have maybe used more third party providers and just get something out the door and keep it maybe much more simple or not, but just quicker, it's kind of a trade-off, and for me, I figured, well, again, like I wanted to have something that I could, like a repeatable template for myself, if you will, like for future products, and also just like some sort of, anxiousness about maybe like one of those who knows how many like SaaS providers that you might then rely on. Like they change their pricing, they change their feature set. Maybe VCs that are basically sponsoring the thing, change their minds, like they have to go shut down. I don't know, like so much. There's too many variables, and like for me to be really comfortable with. And I was more thinking, I'm not in a rush. Like I have my day job. I'm not like burning my own money by building this project. I got time, so I figured, well, I'm gonna build this, in a more long-term way for myself, and also learn a bunch of things while I'm doing it. But if you really just, have an idea and you maybe you already have it validated in one way or another, and you just want to quickly build it to see like if people will actually give you their credit card information, then yeah, maybe a different way would be better.
Mm.
I guess it also just depends on like your personal experience. Like if you're super like experienced in like backend and DevOps, like maybe you're like a Kubernetes magician or something, then like yeah, you're probably just gonna do that instead of using a bunch of online cloud providers or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, it really depends on who you are and what the situation is and what you want to do.
Are you using Kubernetes yet or no?
No, 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 no. That Kubernetes scares me.
I,
No, I've never used it. No, I've worked on projects where like some people configured it, but I've never had to touch it. I am on DigitalOcean's app platform, which like if need be, they can scale things up for me without like me having to
awesome.
think about it. So I'm not like on like their standard VPS. They have like this whole setup that can scale if it needs to. So yeah,
So
that's pretty cool.
that is really cool. That's I have a very similar take to you. So I'm also working on a product. It's actually
Nice.
a lot of fun. Yeah, we can exchange notes. It's so fun. It's so the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my entire life. And I think you can relate with Blog Recorder, right? Because
Oh
it's
yeah.
like this is your thing. This is your
Hmm.
and I don't know if you feel the same about Blog Recorder, but if nobody uses this thing I'm building, I don't care. Because it's my thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's. I mean, yeah. I built it because I wanted to have something like this. So if nobody used it, then I would still probably keep it running. Yeah, for sure,
Right. And
because
so
I use it. So
exactly. And in
yeah.
the process of building this thing, I share exactly your, let's say, hesitation around leading on like 10, 15 different SaaS cloud providers. And so,
Uh
so
huh.
I also, my stack is extremely lean, right? I just have some Cloudflare for some edge stuff, because I
Hmm.
don't have, I don't have 297 or whatever the number is servers all around the world, and I don't think I can get it. So I just use Cloudflare for that, and I um, use like Vercel, Netlify, name your front end cloud for like just a framework deployment, but nothing mission critical there. The main magic, um, and it's a very deliberate decision. The main magic for me was also just on my actual Kubernetes cluster that I own. Well, I don't own, I rent, but there's
Hmm.
Hetzner. I don't know if you've heard of Hetzner. They're a German
Yeah.
company. So I went to Hetzner and I'm like, give me servers. And so I got like actual servers and I set it up myself, like Kubernetes from scratch. I will say this, it's the some of the best developer experience in the world, Kubernetes. I think people like you mentioned you're
Hmm.
afraid of it. Um, I think once you get your hands dirty with it, it is a masterclass in great DX. I will say this. Anyway, so that's everything is on my own cluster. And like you said, DigitalOcean can scale up if you need to. Kubernetes is the same. You just like get another server, join your cluster, it's done, right? And I think that's that's to me at least the superior way to build apps because everything's portable, like you said, and you wanted something repeatable. Like there's nothing
Hmm.
more repeatable than you having your own computer, you know.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm so glad we're sort of tracking here. Okay, so you've got this infrastructure on DigitalOcean AWS. For the front end, you mentioned it's Next.js, but deployed on DigitalOcean Wild. And you've got we talked about the AI architecture as well. Um, what are you using for emails?
I'm on SendGrid.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to deal with this recently, and I used Brevo. So I also didn't roll my own because honestly, like I rolled my own everything except emails because for some reason, I just don't care about it. It's so weird that we both use an external provider for this.
I
Um,
mean, I've just heard from like other people's nightmare stories that, doing your own email is prone to go into spam. So
yeah,
I figured I don't want to like spend my time, like 90% of my time, figuring out why my emails aren't going in the primary folder or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The last technical thing, well, maybe we'll see. There's at least two, but let's say for now, the last technical thing I want to talk about on this product is you mentioned you can like train on your past blog creations. You said train the model. How's that happening? I'd venture a guess of how this is happening, and then you can correct me. Um, I think my guess is it's not training a new model, but rather just like performing RAG. So you save the blog posts, and then reuse old blog posts in your prompt to say sound like this. To me, this would be like the lowest calorie, leanest way to do that. But I'm curious if there's different secret sauce here.
Yeah, you're mostly right. It's kind of different process, but yeah, I'm not like so. I looked into letting people train their own like actual models with like open AIs, training capabilities that they have over API. But again, I ran into like the same situation where like these rate limits and like I don't want like my users to like, okay, I give you X amount of blog posts, Mr. Block Recorder guy. Why do I have to
Yeah,
wait like 12 hours for the model to appear or like be available? Like I don't know how long exactly it takes, but it was not like very quick. So I like that was my initial plan to do that, but when I figured out like that it would take so long for the users to be able to use it, I figured, well, that's not really the user experience I want to provide. And I don't know, like I figured I might as well just try a different approach. So I'm doing some type of RAG approach where like indeed I like embed some parts and also like I have this whole process to analyze the writing styles, like some typical things about how they write and like give it like some specific instructions of like, okay, the user does these types of things very often, or like they don't do this at all, so never do this, right? So it's a combination for
that's
sure.
so
But
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Do you use sometimes all caps in your prompts and like shout at the model?
No, no, I don't do that. No, no. I'm pretty polite. You gotta keep the machines happy, right?
So you say please
Yeah.
and thank you and like please don't
Uh,
hurt me.
I mean, there's like, I'm sure I have like, don't do this or I will be fired or something like that in there, right? But,
Yeah,
but, yeah, I mean, with everything, like, you can tell whatever you want to tell, but, you still need to do some validation. So I also do
yeah,
that. Like, I ask it for a specific format for like the blog post that it generates, and like I've of course validated my own code, like is it actually that format, and if not, then I just throw it away and try it again or whatever. But
yeah,
yeah, there.
yeah. I think one takeaway that people listening, you just said evaluate. I think this is super useful for people working with AI and LLMs is um, when you get a generated response that doesn't fit your rules, it's helpful to build a function that will get a response, try that response, listen to validate it, and then catch the error where it fails to meet your validation rules, and then just regenerate like in a loop,
Hmm.
provided you can afford it. And if your prompt is
Yeah.
good enough, then in about 3 to 5 shots you'll get it. If it's a very difficult challenge, right? Um, do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like don't just stick it in your database if you're gonna like process it. Like if you expect it to be JSON or whatever, and like maybe it's gonna give you YAML or something like that, like that's gonna be a problem, right? So
Are you using Zod?
I am. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
I'm using TRPC as well with Next, so that includes Zod and React Query or Template Query is what it's
Man,
called
you're a real
nowadays.
engineer. I feel
Yeah,
like
real one.
real engineers use TRPC. I've never used it because I'm
It's
a
pretty
junior
cool.
engineer, but like
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
okay.
It's my first
Um
time using it for this project, and yeah, I like it. I mean, I used Zod before. I used 10 sec query before, and like this is just a nice way of setting up the combination between the front end and the back end with some type safety. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it for sure.
Awesome. Let's pivot. I think we did an excellent deep dive, if I say so myself, on like the AI side, the DevOps side, the front end side of Next.js. I think we covered the product well. I think for those wondering how it's built, they have answers. I want to switch and speak a different context to a different set of audience members, which is there's people who are entrepreneurs like you. There's people who want to build products like you and me. I'd love it if we can talk about if we can talk about the product development side of it, because it's so cool. You mentioned this is your first ever SaaS product. Um, One disease that I've seen a lot of SaaS product builders have, and this is not a biological disease, it's like a mental disease, mind virus, where people it's never quite done. You know, you like you're a third party, you're coming in and you're like, oh, you have an MVP. How many people are on the wait list? Oh, none, because I haven't launched it. Like it's this moment that you're like, okay, here's the MVP, seal it and send it and get waitlist signups. That moment is hard to find for a lot of people. They're like, yeah, but I want to add this. I want to add that. Scope creep comes in. So
Right.
you mentioned earlier were quite intentional about your waitlist. How did you know? Like, how does one dial in? Like, okay, this is my MVP. These are the features I want. Now it's time for the waitlist. Or I guess in your case, you did the waitlist even before the MVP. So I
Yeah.
let you speak to all of that. But the question here that I'm trying to get at is how can you recognize when your MVP or your minimum viable product is done?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess like it really comes down to what problem are you trying to solve. Like as far as blog recorder, I just want an app that like, lets me talk and like it turns that into a blog post that I can also edit. So that's like I could have just like have it return markdown and render the markdown like now I have some text, but no, that was not really useful for me. I also wanted something that I could edit. That was like the baseline for me. But that's like so I wanted like a writing assistant basically, but you can make it something like that. You can make it much more advanced. Like there's stuff down the line that I want to do, like SEO analysis or anything like that, right? So like stuff like that, but it's like you don't need that to launch. So it really comes down to what is the minimum version of your product that would be useful to people, and like that's what you should start with. And if people don't like that, then maybe that extra SEO analysis won't really do the
Yeah.
trick for them. So I guess yeah, just the you should probably keep it pretty minimal, not just because like you don't want to be building forever, but also like if you get it into people's hands early, then you also get feedback earlier, and maybe that will completely change your direction. It has in some areas for me. Because like you mentioned, like I did a wait list, and my wait list was super minimal. Like I just did like a small tweet thread with like the ugliest landing page that you'll ever see. Like it's just like this idea of like, okay, I described the app and like why I built it, what problem it would solve, and like what it was going to be for the most part. And then like the landing page was literally like I didn't have a logo. I just like put like a emoji logo and like the name and like a tagline and like I believe I used Beehive or Beehive or however you pronounce it for like the newsletter embed that I threw up on like a free Netlify site, and I didn't even have a domain. Like I just put it on like blogrecorder.netlify.app or whatever, right? And it was like that was it. Like okay, like I didn't have a real logo. I just like slapped a newsletter embed on like a simple Astro template, I think, and yeah, that was the launch basically, or at least like the wait list. And I figured, well, I'm gonna like I was talking to some friends about this at the time, and I think in Discord I like said to them like, yeah, I'm gonna wait until I get like I want at least 20 people on the wait list before I start writing any code. And I mostly kept to that promise. I think it was like at 14 where I figured, well, okay, I guess I can start now. But I didn't want to be um part of the many maybe not horror stories, but horror stories of like people spending so much time building an app that nobody really wants. So I had the wait list, and even before I launched, and this is a tip that I got from a friend, Simon Hoiberg, who runs a few SaaS applications. He has done this in the past, and I figured I'd do it too. I did like a testing round before the actual launch, where I just like took few people from my wait list, and a few others that I thought, well, maybe they are interested in trying the app. I just sent them a message like, hey, I got this tool I'm working on. Do you just want to try it for free, like completely free, until I launch it? And like all I want is like some feedback, basically. Like, tell me if you like it, tell me what you would like to see differently. Pretty low expectations, but just like some feedback, and not just like me sitting there in my room just building and building and building without any response from people. And that ended up being very valuable as well, and also gave me a lot more confidence in that it would actually work well when I launched it, which is also good because again it was like my first product, and I wasn't really sure if I felt comfortable like launching a paid product, like taking people's money for something that like it works on my end, but like does it work on your end? Like with my devices, like it's audio recording in the browser, like oh man, that took a while to get right. So like I figured, well, like I hope it works for them, and like who knows what kind of phone they'll use, right? So yeah. So yeah, to get back to your question, really try to zone in on like what is the minimum level of service that you need to provide to solve a problem, not just like, oh, I
Mm.
want this and this and this. Like, okay, like for me, like I want to talk and have an article that I can edit and like export and like put online. That was like my minimum version, and that was like I didn't. Of course I wanted to have like the personalized AI stuff at that point, but it wasn't ready yet, and I figured, well, if people like it in the version that it is in now, then I can only get better and better, and I can keep adding new stuff. And but the core idea has to also be attractive to people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So the way to find out your MVP feature set is to just think what you would find useful. So start by solving the problem for you without and then that will quickly give you the idea of okay, what extra fluff is. Like you mentioned this SEO stuff, right? You probably
Hmm.
that wasn't going to be immediate value for you as user zero, so you just left it off. This is so useful because I feel like you're preaching to the choir because like this is something I'm dealing with right now as I build my product. Yeah, and then honestly, man, like you did the wait list. Like you said, some cheap thing, no domain, just put on Netlify, lowest effort ever. And then when there was enough interest, you started building, which I find peculiar because you mentioned earlier that this is something you built for yourself and you would have built either way. Because for me, I I I already have a product that I use every day that I love that is giving value to my organization. That like people have seen sort of in passing and they go like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here, let me show you." And they say, "Oh my God, can I have it?" It's and so now it's like basically finished.
Uh-huh.
I think in terms of MVP, definitely finished based on your
Right.
definition, but the waitlist is still not public because because I've been sort of building it for me and using it iteratively and going like, is this useful? So anyway, all that to say, what I'm learning from you is I've been doing it wrong. um, and it's very reassuring. So what I'm hearing from you basically is like, shut up and ship it.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's if that's how you want to summarize it for sure. But you were saying that it's like a tool that you already built and like use at your job?
I originally built it because it was so I didn't build it at my job. I need to be very clear. This is something I
Right.
built outside my job. Has
Hmm.
nothing to do with my employer at all.
Right.
It's I don't even build it on their hardware or when I'm on their clock. Like it's completely and utterly separate. Um,
Uh-huh.
but it's something that I need to do my job effectively. So as you can, a lot of like developer relations work. I'm a developer relations engineer. A lot of it is like community oriented, and I just really struggle knowing how best to spend my community time, right? And so I was like, wait, what if there was like software that could help me do this? There isn't. And so I was like, fine, I'm just going to build something to help me organize myself in community, and not sort of waste my time doing, I don't know, like blog posts that nobody's going to read, but actually like participating in like useful, substantial discussion in our community, right? And so I was like, I would love something to just point me in a direction and be like, go here, do this. Um, didn't exist. So I built it. And I use it. So to answer your question, yes, I do use it at my job, or rather, I use it for my job, but I built it for myself to help me.
That's
Similar, like
awesome.
I guess, yeah, I guess, and you know what? I'll tell you this, man. It gives my company a strong competitive edge because nobody else has this. It's absolutely wild. And
Nice.
so maybe that's why they'll probably stop me from shipping it and be like, no, it's ours. But anyway, that's a battle for another day.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, that's something that you definitely like don't work on it on company time, use your own hardware, all that.
exactly, exactly. And that's I've been very diligent about that. And I've been very, I've been keeping the company in the loop, and I'm like, just so you know, this is something I'm doing. It's a side project. It has nothing to do with you. And so I'm having those conversations. But yeah, so I scratched my own itch. And I think I may be a little bit I'm doing things not on the same timeline as you, which it seems like your timeline is actually really great based on what you've said. Which brings me to another question about building this product, which is I've heard so many people, Eddie, so many people say
Hmm.
launching early is like the most important thing. Like you have to be the first mouse. That's how you get the cheese. The early bird gets the worm. This type of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
actually, it's not true. The second mouse gets the cheese because of the mouse trap. The first mouse dies. If you follow that example. And so I'm
Right.
like, I have mixed opinions, Eddie, about shipping or launching early, and I'll tell you why. Apple announced the iPhone in 2007. Some would say it was early in that there was no multi-touch like smartphone. Others would say it was late because there was Palm Pilot and BlackBerry and. Um, and I think this is such an interesting problem as a product developer because was it that was it that Apple shipped late or early? And is it entirely possible to not even worry about when you ship because your product is so incredible that it's just going to be well received no matter when you ship? So all that to say, like I've even heard you say like launching early, but I'm curious if I could get your thoughts on that specific topic.
Right. So when I say like launch it early, it's more about it's not necessarily about being the first to market because it's actually funny because when I started building Block Recorder, I had the idea like I think like there were some other people that like by some coincidence had like a very similar idea around the same time, and they like one guy I believe it's called Audio Pen. It's like similar but different app. Like it's not like compared to Block Recorder, it's not about like just writing blog posts, and I believe it's more like audio into a note that you can read or whatever. And it's all built by no code, so he shipped in like a week or whatever, which is awesome. But
Wow.
so yeah, what I meant by just like shipping fast is more about getting the feedback and the validation. More, it's more about that, like because if your product is like it's always has to be like different from I guess what other people are building, or maybe not. maybe it can also just be the same and like better marketing. Like there's multiple ways to go about it. But if you're like me or other people that are building a project solo and like you just want to get like validation quickly. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Is like you don't want to be like me and like build for like a year and then maybe not sell anything. Like I should have I should have shipped earlier, honestly. Like I should have just maybe taken a few more shortcuts and like see how the demand was. But and
Wow.
especially like with the AI craze and all that, like the new AI capabilities that we got over the last few years, like with the open AI APIs and all that, like the people that were like able to jump on that pretty quickly, like they made quite a lot of money probably. The earliest apps, but that doesn't mean that like there's no money left or like you still cannot like take a piece of the pie with something in AI or something completely different. So yeah, it's more about like getting the feedback that you want, like as a builder, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, right? Just making sure that you get the information that you need to like, do I want to keep building this? Or maybe it's if you just build it for yourself, then like I did, like I just kept building it. But if you're just like in business to build a product that needs to make your rent or whatever, whatever your goal is, then yeah, if there's no people interested, then yeah, maybe don't spend 2 3 years building it, right? If you're not passionate about it, like I don't know, like there's been people doing that, so
Yeah.
it sucks,
Yeah.
but it happens. Like most SaaS applications, I believe, don't make any money, like zero. So uh, the fact that like my first SaaS makes some money is already pretty amazing to me. But there's still like so much more that I need to learn to grow it. But I'm kind of rambling here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's
let's
that's
just keep it at that. Like you just want
yeah.
to get your feedback early.
Okay, but I will counter that with some of the best advice I received from Matthias Billman, the co-founder of Netlify,
Right.
who said there is such a thing, and I love this, Eddie. I've been thinking about this nonstop, and I'm fairly sure you'll agree with me. It's early is good for feedback, especially if you're trying to validate your idea. But
Hmm.
there is such a thing as too early, where like people can like you're oh, the only thing everyone knows is horses, and you're talking about a car, and they don't get it. They're like, why would I do that? I just use three horses. Versus what you're trying to sell them is 300 horses, and they're like, what is this, right? And so Matt taught me. He was like, look, man, Bitballoon or Netlify back in the day, people couldn't comprehend it. He's talking about like, look, everyone's talking about headless CMSs, but I'm here to deploy your head to and they're like, "What are you talking about, bro? Is that a kink?" And so, I don't know if they said that,
Yeah.
but he said, people will reject it if it's too early. This doesn't mean you have to lose heart. It's just, too early to get that feedback. So I just want to give that one caveat to the listeners. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree?
Yeah, so when you say too early, do you mean like you just like the product isn't ready yet or more
Yeah,
like
you have
it's not the
nothing but an
right time?
idea.
Right. Yeah, because so there's multiple ways to look at it. Like of course you don't want to like so the about releasing a product too early, like you don't want to make a very bad first impression, of course. Like it has to like even your MVP, like it should be minimum, but it shouldn't be like super ugly or like people would should want to use your MVP. It shouldn't be super buggy. Like of course like it's the first version, there's gonna be maybe a couple bugs, but like it should work like most of the time at least, right? People shouldn't get frustrated when they use it. So yeah, that like you definitely don't want to like ship so early to the point where you ship something that like falls apart when people try to use it. For sure, you don't want to do that. You don't want to give them the wrong idea of like because like for like if it's so bad that like the first impression is bad, like terrible, and like maybe half a year later, like you say, like, oh, I fixed all the issues. Well, they're gonna be like, yeah, I'm not really interested anymore.
Yeah.
Good luck, but I'm good.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm out.
yeah, right. But there's also like the other way of looking at it, where like launching, like at the wrong time could be, just bad timing. Like I don't have any specific examples, but there's like been times where people just have like an idea for a product, but like the market isn't really ready for it yet,
You mean
right?
like
Or
the Apple Vision Pro or the Humane Pin or the
I
Rabbit
mean, yeah,
R1?
those sorts of things, but like even simpler examples, right? Like that aren't wearables or whatever. Like it could just be like a SaaS,
Yeah.
right? If you launch it today, maybe nobody comes, and then like somebody a year from now builds the same exact thing, and like all of a sudden, like people want it. There's so many like factors, like with the timing. But yeah, when it comes to like shipping too early because your product sucks, that's definitely something that you want to avoid for sure. I'm
Right.
fully on board with that.
You recently announced something awesome. I saw this on social media where Blog Recorder was originally, you record for up to 15 minutes
Uh
and then
huh.
you get a blog post. I saw that this goes up to 90 minutes now, which
Yeah.
that's absolutely banana. I would love this episode's going to be probably more than 90 minutes, but if we put this episode on Blog Recorder, what would we get? That's so cool. I want to talk
That is
about
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, let's do it. Let's do it after just to experiment, and then we'll share it with the audience. But how do you do that? How do you? I've tried. Okay, so for context, this podcast, Eddie, is we ship, man. We ship reliably, regularly, quality every single week. It used to be twice a week, but in preparation for the holidays, I don't really want to work that much
Yeah.
or oversee the team. So there is a team behind the podcast. It's made up of one human and 13 machines.
All
it's all
right.
it's it's
All
it's
right.
it's
All
all
right.
AI,
Nice.
and yeah. So AI does literally everything except like show. I'm not AI, I promise. Except this
Hmm.
conversation, everything around it is AI. From the the transcripts to the chapters to the thumb, what like it's all AI. And so I've tried so hard, and now I've finally arrived at a way to have a language model, um, or model, or an agent, whatever they call it these days, listen to this episode, the full episode, and then give me timestamp chapters for like
Nice.
Spotify and YouTube.
Nice.
But that man, that was difficult because these episodes are very long, and oftentimes there's hallucination, and oftentimes my experience was they don't act. They'll give you like the first 8 to 15 minutes and then they sort of fall off the wagon. How in the world do you have something, listen to a 90-minute recording and put out a cohesive blog post?
Yeah, I mean that's that's a tricky question for sure. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've like ever with like ChatGPT or other like alternatives have done like a very long input. Like it definitely like is more prone to mistakes. So yeah, that would but to you mentioned uploading this episode. The thing is though, like I don't have like a file upload right now. It's just like live recordings in the app. So maybe I could do it like with some manual work in the back end or whatever, but like it's not supported right now. Something that is on my to-do list though, but like
I'll
I
I'll
wanted
build
to
it for
ship,
you.
so sorry, say again.
I said I'll build it for you if you give me access to the repo.
All right, all right. Um, yeah. But the whole like 15-minute limit was also because of OpenAI. Like I was on Whisper again, and like they had these low limits of requests per minute, and also the amount of data that you could upload. It was very small in comparison to what I'm using now. So yeah, so the recording limit was just basically a file size limit. That was mostly the issue there, and I I honestly should do some more like very long testing. But the thing with these audio, like if I want to do like test that functionality and like talk for 90 minutes, that's a lot, man, just to test your feature. So like it would work, but I haven't like talked for 90 minutes myself yet. But it's a possibility. Like
Yeah.
it's more for like, like I've used my app, like for example, when I'm driving to work, like I go into the office like one or twice a week, and that's also like how I got the idea for the app. Like I have a lot of thoughts while I'm driving in my car, but I can't write them down. So that's like how I got the idea for the app, and that's also how I use it like quite a few times. And when I had that 50-minute limit, like sometimes like I'm just like not ready yet. Like I see like the timer hitting almost that 50-minute mark. I'm like I need to wrap up. Like I gotta like speed up my brain and like start talking faster or whatever, and like get the most amount of info in there. But like so it was more about not cutting people off while they're like in the middle of whatever they're talking about. It was more about that than necessarily, like creating longer blog posts or anything like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Awesome. How did you get the domain? Blog Recorder, was it just available?
It was
Blogrecorder.com.
not. No, it was still unavailable actually, I believe when I got the like Netlify domain, but I figured, well, I'm not gonna. So this is kind of weird. Like I've always bought like domain names before like I have my project ready, and this is like the one time that I actually like shipped a pretty sizable project, like a personal project, where I like decided on a name, didn't buy the domain, and like bought it after like it was like at a decent state, and it's like not actually available. I had to buy it like I believe it's like a GoDaddy auction for the domain. Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Did that cost you a fortune? Are you bankrupt now? Was it like
yeah,
as much as was it as much as American healthcare?
yeah. It's I'm bankrupt now, so anyone listening, please get a subscription. No, it's actually like $20. There's not a lot of interest in the domain, which is like I remember like seeing the GoDaddy domain and like being kind of like paranoid of like, what if other people are checking this? Like they see that I'm on like this blockrecorder.netlify domain, like um what if they see this auction and also just start bidding on it. So I just kept quiet and like put in the highest bid and like hopefully nobody snags it, and I just got
Nice.
lucky, I guess. But if that didn't work, then I probably would have just uh used a different name. It wasn't like
It's
the yeah.
I think that's a sign from the universe going like this is like destiny.
Yeah,
Um, one thing I
absolutely.
really don't like about language models when they generate text, even blog posts, is
Hmm.
that they almost always like, in my opinion, unhealthily bias towards like lists. Like it's just bullets everywhere. And
Hmm.
sometimes I don't want that. Sometimes I want like just paragraphs, you know. And so then I have to. I've sent this many times to like ChatGPT and others, where it's like, no, no, respond with paragraphs. Um, when you're creating blog posts with Blog Recorder, how does it know like how to structure like where to put headings, where to put lists, where to put paragraphs? Is this part of your prompt as well? Like turn this into heading. Like I don't even know how you would specify what needs to be a heading and what needs to be a paragraph, etc.
I mean, it just like again, it's like unstructured, like you're just talking, and it just like tries to come up with some headings for like like whatever you're talking about, like a topic or a subject. Like you can naturally divide it into like some sections. Like if you looked at the transcript, and AI does that. The LLM does that as well, and like it just gives it a title and or a heading, and yeah, that's basically how it does it. And I haven't really had anyone else mention that like it was too list heavy, but it does definitely do lists for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that I should do some more testing on if people prefer only paragraphs, for example.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
an interesting one.
I certainly do that. Awesome. Let's start talking a little bit about the future of this. You've made
Hmm.
it. Actually, before we do that, let's talk about the present. We kind of talked about the architecture, the origin story. Wow, are you typing? Am I that boring? I take this
I
personally,
was
Eddie.
taking a note about the paragraph thing. Sorry, can you hear that?
Yeah, that's extremely loud, and our listeners are going to basically abandon this podcast
Oh, okay.
because of your
I'm
keyboard.
sorry. So I guess we can stop here.
Yeah. Let's talk about the current state. So you launched this. I saw Kent C. Dodds loves it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Also guest on the podcast. Where's it at now? Is it are you paying bills from it? Is it does has it achieved what you hoped it would?
I mean, in short, yes, because there are more than zero paying customers. So that's like super big
Awesome.
win in my book for like my first project and first product. So in that sense, like even just like that's like the minimum goal for like my initial,
How many paying customers are there?
So I checked before the recording. Right now there are 17, and
Wow.
I believe, yeah, just over 260 total signups, but those aren't all paying customers. I believe there were like 22 paying customers at like the in total. Maybe not at the
Yeah.
top, but like a few unsubscribed and a few others subscribed again. So yeah, basic SaaS stuff, I guess. Um, and also recently I had like super weird. Like there's this customer, like he's happy with the product, but his card kept declining, and there's like nothing I can do about it. Like Stripe just says no, no, it's not. It's not like he has paid successfully in the past, but no, Stripe says no. So I'm not getting that money anymore. So that's a bit unfortunate. But no, it's like to be fully transparent, it's not like paying all my bills yet, unfortunately. Maybe in the future, but right now it's like doing around 250 euros a month, which is, it's all right. It's been live for like 6 months, and that is something that I've recently launched a pretty big new feature with the personalized AI, and right now on my mind is I need to do more marketing, get more people in the door, get more people to sign up, and like improve my onboarding flow and all that, right? So there's all the engineering stuff which is fascinating and super fun to work on, but I also need to be a professional, product person, and like do a better job of promoting it, because like while I would this is something that I didn't realize until I was building the feature for a while, but like before I got to that point, I was doing a lot of small releases and like just basically every week or two, whatever, like doing some updates and like posting about that, the whole building in public thing, as they say, and that was basically my marketing. But then I spent quite a long time working on like this personalized AI, and I wasn't posting any, build in public updates, so I wasn't really doing any marketing. And like after a while, like I just saw like a steep decline in like people signing
Wow.
up. So like this is like okay. I figured, well, I mean, again, my time is limited because I do it on like outside of my job, and it's part time, and so I need to, uh, just think like what am I going to spend my time on. So I figure, well, I'm gonna just finish this feature, and then you know take a good step back and look at how I'm marketing my product, and think about how I'm gonna do that differently. Which is that's something that I have been thinking about recently, and I plan in between all the family and holiday festivities over the next few weeks to think a bit more about that stuff while I have some time away from my job. But recently, I have. So I've been thinking about that for a while now, and one thing that I ended up trying last week, or last weekend, no, the weekend before that, I started on like this. I had this idea for Blog Recorder, where I wanted to. So whenever I use it, like I'm able to create like blog posts pretty fast. Like I just like do my recording, and like it takes however long it takes, and then it processes it. Like I can do a few tweaks, and like then I'm like happy with the post pretty much. But then still need like an image for the post, like the OG image for the Open Graph image for the post, which is like I always go into Figma and I have like my own template or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to do that, and I expect other people don't want to do that. So I figured, well, I am gonna do something. It fits what I want to do in Blog Recorder. Like I just want to make blogging easier for people. Like I want it to be, you know, human people creating content. So that like I got that step done, but of course it can still be improved. But like the whole image generation, that was something that I didn't have yet. So I built. I heard about this idea of like engineering as marketing, which I believe is from the book Traction, by, if I'm not mistaken, like the people behind like DuckDuckGo. Um,
Mm.
anyway, long story short, I like built like a feature to like or like a React component where people can like make like a nice open graph image for their blog posts or websites, and they can like change the text and like change the styling and like make it has like a few different layouts. And I figured, well, I can build that for blog record and like put that inside the app, but I can also take that and like put that on its own website as like a completely free tool to like I can, because promoting something free is pretty easy. Like people will be like, "Oh, this is free. This is awesome. I love free stuff. Give me more free stuff." And they'll share it with like their friends and all that, if it's good. So I put like that component that I built on its own website, and like I bought a domain for it, and it's ogimagemaker.com. I was surprised that was still available, but that's what it is. And it's like this nice little tool that you can just like completely free make these open graph images for your posts. And hopefully like I put like a little ad basically on the web page for Blog Recorder, and I'm gonna hopefully get a few more signups from that over time and see, so I kind of took like something that I wanted to put inside the app, and I also I'm gonna use that for like engineering as marketing, if that's what it's called. So but again, like I am still learning this whole SaaS marketing thing as I go. I'm a developer. I'm not a marketer. Like I've worked at like a marketing agency before, but I wasn't like a marketer. I was just one of the devs building the marketing website. So like I still have a lot to learn in that department, and I'm just learning this as I go. And like this whole like building free tools and hopefully attracting some new users through that is just an experiment, and hopefully it works out well. And if not, then I'll move on to other stuff. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like next year I want to do so much stuff in this department. Like maybe get into like learning about paid ads or like how all that works. Like there's so much stuff. I just need to drive more people to my page basically and get them to sign up, because like it's nice. Like I'm super happy about the project, and I'm super grateful for the people that have tried it, and especially the people that have actually paid for it and are still paying for it. Like I love that. But I would also like to, grow it, and maybe one day make it a bit more, substantial for both my income, and maybe, pipe dream somewhere down the line, make it my full time thing. But that's like, it's still so far away. It's like, it's just a dream right now. And, I'm just gonna do my best to improve the project and make some more money, basically. But yeah, that's like, honestly, from like my perspective as a developer, that's even harder than doing the AI stuff and like building the UI and like figuring out infrastructure as code and all that. Like that's like, I mean, yeah, it's much more abstract for sure.
That's interesting. That is such a non-unique perspective. It's wild, Eddie. I said
Yeah,
non-unique. It's such an extremely common perspective.
yeah,
Like
I know.
I've spoken to so many founders and CEOs on this. Like immediately who comes to mind? Brandon Bayer, Flight Control, Glauber Costa, Terzo, JV from SST, literally so many, almost every founder, Matt Bielman from Netlify, like so many folks, and they all agree that look, man, the engineering is not the hard part. They're also engineers. It's the marketing and the position. It's like, how
Yep.
do you communicate this is actually useful? This is not transcription. This is, we take your thoughts and we arrange them. Like, how do you put that correctly so that people know what it is and then they can make their decision? It's not really trying to like get people to pay. It's more like, look, they just need to know what it is and the value
Yep.
it provides, and then they decide, right? And literally everyone I talk to goes, this is the hardest problem ever.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, that's what my product solves. I'll show you a demo or something later,
Oh,
but
that's cool. Yeah.
it's, yeah, so I think the idea is pretty validated. But I did, so you mentioned it's just like feature freeze after the customize your blog post to match your voice. It's feature freeze after that, and you got to put on the marketing hat,
Yeah.
and go
More or
hard. I
less.
can't
I mean,
wait.
I have shiny object syndrome, so like I decided that, but then I also decided to do like the whole image generation component. So yeah, I'm still gonna ship that pretty soon. So yeah,
I
but
don't want the image thing. No, but I will say this. I'm excited to follow your sort of engineering-led marketing or build in public journey with marketing, because
hmm
I think there's just so much that people can learn. But I have some questions about features that may or may not be implemented that um, maybe could be, depending on your roadmap. Specifically, I find myself often at DataStax actually having to have the conversation of, great, we just published a blog post, but now let's immediately cross-post it to Medium and Dev2 and other places like this. So with Log Recorder, you have the WYSIWYG editor. Do you have publish power yet?
not yet.
As well. Okay,
But I
interesting.
do
Yeah,
want that. Like again, when it comes back to like the simplest possible MVP, like
yeah,
I
of
just
course.
like I have some export buttons that basically like it copies the whole post in like a specific format to your clipboard. So like I can copy the markdown format and post it to dev2, for example. But yeah, like that is something that I do want to do, but like I just haven't had the
Yeah.
time yet. There's so much stuff I still want to build and not enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully you have your day job to sort of tide you over.
Yeah.
Um, Excellent, man. Incredible. Well, do you plan to expose an API as well, or are you thinking just full pro? Because like we talked to Aya Bachman from Fashion AI, and they have a really great like virtual try-on product where like you take a photo of a shirt, take a photo of yourself, and it'll show you realistically what you would look like. It's like you try clothes on just like with pictures. It's really cool.
Right.
Um, they have this product, but what they're noticing, and they're also just great people who build like products. They're
hmm
noticing that they exposed an API so that people can like receive, pictures and stitch them together using their model over an API. What they're learning is that people are paying more for an API than for the actual product. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I find that's also
Yeah.
really interesting. And so that begs the question, Blog Recorder, will it support an API? Meaning, can I send a post request somewhere with my, I don't know, like the buffer of my voice recording, and then I get back text programmatically over an API? Is there a plan for that? Did I just like introduce some complexity to your project?
I mean, there could be. I don't have it in like my backlog right now, but that is something to think about for sure. Like I'm gonna, yeah, I've never really thought about doing like API as a product. I more of like I see it as like a software tool, but yeah, maybe that's an angle that I, could experiment with for sure. Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I was mind blown talking to Aya about that. Awesome. Well, this is literally everything I wanted to know about Blog Recorder. I think everything that most of us wanted to know about Blog Recorder. I'm curious, what would you, besides a call to action, like, hey, everyone go try this, which yes, indeed, everyone go try it. Is there anything you wanted to add? Anything you're excited about? Anything you'd like to point people to while they're listening, about Blog Recorder that we haven't covered yet?
I mean, yeah, besides the obvious, like go to blogrecorder.com and, just give it a try. It's free to try, no credit card and all that. Like you can just sign up and try it out. And if you like it, then can put the credit card down. But you don't have to up until that point. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, not much. I mean, we covered a
Awesome.
lot already. So, like, we talked about like, basically the pitch and how I got the idea.
Good.
Like, I wrote a few things down. Yeah, I mean, we talked about like the latest updates, what I'm currently struggling with. So, yeah, I think we covered pretty much
Awesome.
everything. Yeah.
Great. final question. Um, are you gonna be smoking anything over the next few days? I don't mean like smoking like marijuana. It came out wrong. That was a mistake. We'll have this is this is let's have the agent. You know what I mean. So for context, listeners, Eddie smokes meat. This is his thing. Like he's a griller. He's a barbecuer. And outside of the blog recorder, you got plans? What are you working on?
I mean, earlier this year, like we went to Austin, Texas together for
That's right.
that conference, right?
Which is not a weird city at all. I just want to put that
It
out
is
there.
not. No, it is a pretty normal city to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was super fun. But yeah, after that, like I bought like this old secondhand like smoker from like someone that lives like 30 minutes away from me. It's like very rusty, and I'm still in the process of restoring it and like making it nice again, and like but I've been assigned some Christmas cooking with the smokers or like the normal barbecue that I will be doing. So yeah, I'm gonna do some of that for like the family dinners and all that.
Right on.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Well, listen, Eddie Vink, it's been so good having you on the podcast, man. You've inspired. I think you've absolutely inspired me actually in the thing that I'm building, to build it better. You've answered so many really great questions. I say it really great, but and you've really like given us the full overview, right? From like the front end to the DigitalOcean, the AWS, the Whisper, the DeepGram. On behalf of the listeners, myself, thanks so much for coming on and making all of this accessible to everybody. And I can't wait to see people try Blog Recorder and really like put the joy back into blog, because I feel like a lot of reasons people don't even finish posts is because I don't want to think and type. But what if you could think out loud, right? So anyway,
yeah,
all that to say, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with everyone.
yeah. Thank you so much, Tejas, for having me.
Thank you for joining my discussion with Eddy Vinck. I hope you learned a ton from. I hope you learned from it as much as I did, frankly. And I hope you feel inspired to go solve your own problem, to build whatever you want. You can just do things. And I hope this episode has inspired that. If you have questions, comments, or whatever, you can find me on X at tejaskumar_. You can also just leave a comment. I read them. If you're learning from and enjoying the content, then a great way to support it is to like the video on YouTube if you're watching there and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on social media like Apple or Spotify, then you can leave a review. That really does help the algorithm surface this in front of more people. And if you think that more people could benefit from this, then just share it on social media, clip it, do whatever you want. This is all free and available for the benefit of people, really. And so with that, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. And so much so, thank you for your interest in engineering.